And dear friends, it's with pleasure that we welcome you to the Master Series event initiated by CIIM as part of the research activities of the MSc in Financial Law and International Taxation, and powered by the Cyprus International Businesses Association and the Cyprus branch of the International Law Association. A few words about CIBA and the ILA. CIBA was created in 1992 by business expats with a view to promoting the interests of the international companies operating on the island. And CIBA works to support its members, help them network, and provide education opportunities for them. The International Law Association, ILA, was founded in Brussels in 1873. And the ILA has a consultative status as an international non-governmental organization with a number of United Nations specialized agencies. ILA Cyprus was established in 2015 as the Cyprus branch of the ILA, and its objectives are to promote the objects of the association among Cypriots and Cyprus residents, to promote the understanding of and the progressive development of international law in all its aspects in Cyprus, and to participate as fully as possible in the work of the ILA. And of course, if anybody is interested either in joining the ILA or CIBA, we can provide more details. So, how non-EU investors will be able to invest within the EU, acquire assets, under which restrictions, compliance, and conditions? Let's start with some numbers presented by the European Commission in Brussels on October 9th, 2020. The EU is one of the world's most open investment destinations and the main destination for foreign direct investment in the world. FDI stocks held by third country investors in the EU amounted to 6.4 billion at the end of 2017, providing Europeans with 16 million direct jobs. Meanwhile, foreign direct investment stocks held by third country investors in the EU increased to 7.2 billion in the end of 2018, and while only 3% of European companies in the sample studies in 2016 were owned or controlled by non-EU investors, they represented more than 35% of the assets. And there has been a continuous increase in foreign ownership over the last 10 years, which was mostly due to the acquisition of increasingly large listed companies. So where do we stand right now? The FDI screening regulation adopted in March 2019 established an EU-wide framework in which the European Commission and the member states can coordinate their actions on foreign investments. And it is this framework and this regulation, its effects, that will be presented today by Professor Bovis. How will this FDIS regulation impact companies? How will mergers and acquisitions and takeovers be affected? What other influences are we expecting in the future? What is the take going forward? Beyond the foreign direct investment screening regulation, we will also hold a talk on the upcoming developments, adding to the present the screening on to this present screening a new parallel screening procedure that focuses on foreign subsidies after the 2020 Commission's white paper, to be read aside with the 2018 EU communication on anti-tax avoidance measures in financing and investment operations. Thereafter, Mr. Pantelis Christofidis will assist us for bringing this to the Cyprus context. With us, we are honored to have Professor Christopher Bovis, Professor of International Business Law at the University of Hull, visiting professor in MSc in Financial Law and International Taxation at CIIM, advisor for the UN, European and national governments, and his fields of expertise cover international business and trade law, European Union law, antitrust, energy, transport, and telecommunications. He is an expert for the Commission on public procurement. He was elected Fellow of the Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts, Manufacturing and Commerce in 2006 and made a Life Fellow in 2011. And he was appointed by the United Nations as Rapporteur to the Millennium Department Commission on Public-Private Partnerships in 2009. Thereafter, the findings of Professor Bovis will feed a short talk conducted by Professors Hadji Michail and Apostolidou before the floor is given to Mr. Pantelis Christofidis. Your contribution beyond your attendance that honors the panel shall come at the Q&A section that follows. we invite you at that point to share your questions through the chat option in Zoom, stating the person to whom it is addressed or whether it is for all. Other panel experts will also be able to offer their opinion on each question submitted. And if there's not enough time, we're more than happy to take these questions and come back to you with answers. The event will be closed by Mrs. Alexia Solomou, founder and president of the Cypriot branch of the Cyprus International Law Association. I now invite Professor Bovis to discuss the European Foreign Direct Investment Regulation. Professor Bovis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Andrew. I would share my screen and hopefully with special thanks to CIM and the Cyprus International Business Association and the International Law Association, the Cypriot branch. I'm with you today to discuss something which is for the first time taking the European Union system, trade system, legal system, and business system by surprise. And that is the screening framework for investment, foreign investment into the market of the European Union, the single market, and also the member states. This is the first time. We've never seen that before. And the reason for that is not the pandemic and the vulnerability of the economy during the pandemic, but mainly because the time is right to do exactly that, screen foreign investments. On the backcloth of the entire investment, foreign investment in the European Union, there's a fear factor that other economies, other nations, other governments might take an upper hand in controlling investments and perhaps gaining a competitive advantage towards the single market, the internal market. So the European Union realized that the time is right now to create that framework, that European-wide FDI screening framework for the single market. The concern that they had, not only this year, but previously, it was focusing on certain sectors and certain industries, moving away from ownership of European conglomerates or European interests, the control moving away into different parts of the world, mainly China, mainly Far East, but also Russia. Also other unknown or unidentified factors that create control, company law control into specific sectors, some critical infrastructure, transport, media sector, the data processing, and also defense, the defense manufacturing and defense distribution of munitions and materials for the war as a critical component for the infrastructure of a government. Technologies also create a lot of potential for attracting investment. And you understand, as an open economy, Cyprus is an open economy and relies mainly on attracting investment, that technology is one of the most important magnets for attracting investment. Today, the European Union realizes that new technologies focusing on artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and also automation, such as robotics, create also a big hunger for investment, a big hunger for also controlling of companies that associate in the supply chain of these sectors. Finally, the biggest problem concerning inward investment in the European Union relates on energy and raw material, the critical input into an economy and also business. And Cyprus is one of the most important winners into the world of energy because of the discovery of some fantastic reserves of oil and gas in the territorial zone. And that also put into the spotlight concerning the controlling elements of investment patterns in the European Union. FDI in the European Union, the ability to have a control system of foreign investment in the European Union, focus on two concepts. The first is the tracing of the motives of companies that come into the European Union. Tracing means monitoring, in other words, and trying to find patterns, try to find origin of the investor and the reasons for coming into the European Union to invest. The second element is the element of coordination between national governments. The European Union itself can create a framework for attracting investment, but the decision for investment, the decision also to create a domestic framework of investment relates into the government itself, the national government, Cyprus, Greece, United Kingdom, for as long as United Kingdom is in the European Union, France, Germany, and any other member state. In other words, it creates a huge appetite for coordinated action, which would lead to scrutiny for the motivations of investment. The trend and also the coordination enhancement will lead into the scrutiny. That means openness and transparency behind the investment pattern. The background for the system that we have faced today in order to create that inward investment screening mechanism in the European Union is basically third country investors needing a serious second look for the motivations and the origin of the funds. The European Union is raising the alarm concerning the potential impact of investments from certain sectors, certain also investment environments. The size and the market of investment, mainly for certain sectors, certain industries, and the qualitative elements of investments in the tech sector, the high-tech sector, pharmaceuticals also, create a major problem for control. The control element of investment started as early as 2006, believe it or not, a few years ago, when the China Sovereign Fund wanted to come into Germany and invest heavily on a manufacturing portfolio, including conglomerates such as Volkswagen. Volkswagen creates not only vehicles, but also creates technology for automated products and also systems, software systems for driverless vehicles. So China and the sovereign fund from China wanted to build up a specific position on that, but it backfired. Within a fortnight, Germany in 2006 created the so-called Volkswagen law. So it created a defense mechanism, a scrutiny mechanism in order to create a blockage, a red card for coming into Germany from a sovereign fund of a third country that created that. Created that element of specific concerns that you have with the marketplace. In addition to that, third countries investors specifically control companies that originate from different parts of the world, provide for major concerns, so national security, which is defense oriented or sovereignty oriented for the member state. And also public order. Public order is a concept that created a major question mark for European law, compliance with European law. For example, it's a deviation for the fundamental freedoms under Article 36 of the Treaty of the European Union. Member states can claim that public order stop the actual evolution of the freedoms of the internal market. Therefore, they can deviate. And you will see national security and public order, ordre public in France, which is originated from the French insistence to insert that element of stop and deviation from the European law, emerges into the system of screening of foreign investment. Up to now, the European Commission came with a very comprehensive way of providing information on the members that they have an active system for screening for FDI. And the number of countries, as you will see on your screen, from Austria all the way down to Spain, but not Cyprus, not Greece, and some other states that they're critical for investments. Sweden, for example, to a certain extent, United Kingdom, and also Ireland. That is the status quo at the moment. And the result was to create a comprehensive framework that will allow a European-wide screening of foreign investments. What does it mean? It means that the member state still is in control for regulating investment, foreign investment, and screening, but with one condition: they have to share, number one, the information related to the investment and seek any other information from the Commission and other member states. That concept, the seeking of information, the scrutiny element of the framework, will allow the member state to decide three outcomes: to allow the investment unconditionally, to allow the investment with subject to conditions, or to prohibit the investment. It changes the dynamic also. The cooperation and also the coordination changes the dynamics of the whole decision-making process. The big question is, what information do you need? What information a member state, for example, the Republic of Cyprus, will need to notify to other member states, probably all the member states of the European Union, including the European Commission, in relation to a forthcoming investment from a third country. A third country is a country that doesn't have a specific customs union relations with the European Union. So a third country is something which trades on the World Trade Organization objectives of investment. So the information that needs to be exchanged, the information that needs to be shared and be under scrutiny, focus on the target company and the investment sector, the timing, and also the entire operational characteristics of the investment, the paternity of the investment, who controls the funds, who controls, for example, the different possibilities for the investment coming into a specific country. And that creates also a huge appetite, a huge stress for the system to put conditions, put, for example, the elements of control. Is it the member state that provides for the information request and the scrutiny gatherings to provide for a decision for the investment to go ahead, or something else that we need to take into account? And the problem is here, in the past, that there was not a specific way of looking at the division between national interest and European interest. But for the first time, the European Union came pretty clear and mentioned that if there's a co-financing of a specific project, according to the European budget, or specific programs, Horizon, Galileo, for example, Galileo is the satellite and all the transmissions of the satellite for the member states for broadcasting or sharing data. Issues that relate into TENS, trans-European networks in member states. They receive tremendous amount of contribution from the European budget, and as a result, union interest, the European Union interest. And this is the door opening for the European Commission, not the European Council or anybody else, the European Commission to have a say in the investment that is forthcoming into the member state. Remember that later on that we will be discussing a few things. The criteria, according to the proposed system, that may be taken into consideration for controlling the investment and also potentially blocking the investment because it might affect security or public order into a country, into a member state of the European Union, focus on critical infrastructure, which not only it's infrastructure for buildings and also real estate, but also infrastructure for technologies. Critical technologies such as high-tech technology and supply and distribution of raw materials, energy materials, and access to information for the ability to control information, data management, and issues that relate to privacy of data and confidentiality. Finally, media and the role of the media and also the ownership of the media to control, for example, public opinion. You realize that the public opinion and the media affects not only elections, but affects everyday life concerning not only choices for consumers, for production and consumption, but also choices that relate into, for example, future directions for an economy. Therefore, member states and the Commission have a joint control, have a joint stake into the investment mechanism of the new screening provision of the European Union. I'd like to put some ideas into you and perhaps debate a few further aspects. That screening of foreign investments from third countries into a European Union country increases monitoring and also creates a transparency and network effect. We have network effects in many other aspects. Competition, for example, is full of network effects. Many competition authorities, including the Cypriot Competition Authority, has a network responsibility to communicate with different network members of other member states, to share information, confidential information about companies, markets, about mergers, about acquisition, about dominant firms. Are we seeing a convergence of the system? I think we are. We are into that sort of screening, monitoring, creating a networking effect for foreign investment for the first time. Secondly, the most important concept is control. You need to control a certain sector, and control as an investor relates into company law. Company law that dominates the member states. It's not European company law, but it's Cypriot company law, German company law, French company law, that tells the world, tells, for example, the European Union or any other investor that this is the requirements for control, 51 plus or 75% for total control of a company. And that creates a big debate. Who has control of the notion of control? Who creates that element of control of a foreign investment into a company, into a sector, into an industry of a member state? Is it national or is it European-wide? The new regulation creates that element of due consideration, the transparency, and also the possibility for scrutiny collectively with the European Union. But also, it puts a tremendous pressure on the part of the European Commission to declare a specific investment as union-wide, to allow intervention, to allow the union interest. Therefore, it can bypass anything else and said, please stop it. The question that remains unsolved, because I don't think member states yet have digested the obligations from the new system. If a member state is committed to receive an investment from a third country in a strategic sector and contravenes all the recommendations from other institutions, such as the European Commission, can it go ahead? Can it, for example, deviate from that concept of affirming the investment without any conditions, or without any aspects of controlling of the investment pattern? And that is the concept that we need to debate for the next year or even the next decade. Is it a uniform or harmonized criteria created by the regulation? The national security, that sort of the first line of attack. The national security is mainly national. The Cypriot Republic, the Greek Republic, Hellenic Republic, France, or Germany, they have the notion of national security. But can we have a notion of national security EU-wide? Can, for example, the notion of national security for strategic sectors that try to penetrate a specific country bring together that collective European Union-wide notion of national security? Question mark. We see quite often very aggressive behavior of some associated members of the European Union. I refer to Turkey, for example, that potentially might take that concept of European-wide national security. It doesn't also take into account national security of Greece or Cyprus for example, the extraction and exploration of reserves on raw materials and oil and gas, but also in terms of exclusive zones in the Pelagos between Cyprus and Greece, and concerning for future territorial rights of the two countries. Is that only a national security concern, or moves into the big sphere of European-wide, European Union national security to protect the boundaries of the European Union? Because Cyprus is the boundary of the European Union with the Far East, such as also Greece on the south part of the Union. The most difficult part, in my humble opinion, is the concept of public order. The public order, traditionally, in the free movement debate over the past 40 years of integration in the European Union, was mainly a national debate. A public order, ordre public, is something that corresponds into the national preference, the national system, the priority, issues that relate into religion, issues that relate into customs, heritage. All of a sudden, that might take a European-wide definition. Public order, imagine as a system of creating an order, a uniform order of the public sphere in the single market. And that is something that we haven't debated that. The regulation, the new instrument through the regulation, which is directly applicable, we lawyers understand the concept of direct applicability, means that you have to take it. You don't have any way to deviate. And that is a concept that we haven't debated that. A public order across the European spectrum to covering every single member state. I'd like to thank you for your attention. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for speaking to your audiences and for that very important topic. I'm more than happy to take any questions that you have, and I look forward to meet you in person sometime later on when we resume some normality in our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.